Hi fam, welcome to Fab Media. It's your girl Becky with this little princess of mine, Ayana. She's been crying. She doesn't want me to leave her down by herself. I know. I have gone through 3 different name changes. So first it was Rebecca Amongin, and then I changed it to Deep Thought CG. And now finally I have zeroed down on Fab Media, FAB. So F stands for favored, A stands for and B stands for blessed. Your girl is favored and blessed. I'm so happy to have you here. I have had 3 different nannies so far to help me take care of this little baby girl of mine. But there is a phase whereby I had nobody and I opted for daycare. So I just want to share with you the pros and cons of each method and see which one you would prefer or which one is better for us mothers and fathers out there. So number one, let's begin with the pros of daycare. One, the baby learns social skills. So the children interact with each other, like they get to play with one another, they get to eat together with their peers, and they get to do so many different things. In some daycare, the babies might share beds with one another, so that develops their social skills a lot. Number two is that there is a routine that they follow, because most daycares have a routine of you go, have breakfast, maybe play a little bit, have a nap, and then in the afternoon play again. So there is a routine that is followed in daycares versus home, where it's basically as one wishes to carry on. The third advantage of daycare is that the child eases into nursery, because as they go to the daycare, it's more or less a school environment. So when the child reaches time to enter into daycare, it's quite easy for him or her to ease into the nursery setting. But number four is that these babies are exposed to a lot. And this cold season, we are having a lot of flu, we're having a lot of cough. So when I took Ayana to the daycare, oh my god, she had fevers every other time. I thought I would keep her in daycare, but with this continuous fever, continuous flu and all that, I just gave up and I was like, you know what, Becky? Just get her out of there. Another advantage of daycare is that there is accountability, because you find at least one or more workers, and then also the children are more. So, the isolation that someone could have with a child is phased out of. Accountability is very important, because people tend to do weird things when they are alone with children. Another benefit of daycare is that your expenses are reduced, because you do not have an extra live-in person at home. While you're away from home, no one is using the water, no one is using the power, no one is using the gas or the charcoal or the electricity or even the food. So at the end of the day, you notice that your bills are reduced quite significantly. Another advantage of daycare is that it's open all the time. Doesn't matter whether one worker has not come or not. That is up to the manager of the daycare to make sure that the daycare carries on with its activity. The cons of daycare are: one, illness. Oh my god, cough, flu. In the cough season, your child will have cough and flu, and infections will become infections, and you just cannot prevent it, because children in their nature are just reservoirs for infection and they spread it a lot. So be ready to treat your child in and out of hospital every other time. Another disadvantages of daycare is that your child will learn bad behavior from others, because children from different backgrounds, children from different homes, different upbringings all converge in this one area. So your child might get to learn different characters. For example, throwing tantrums, for example, abusing. So at this point, I would advise you to do your research on the type of daycare that you're taking your child to. I'm going to do a separate video on how to choose the right daycare for your child. The third disadvantage about daycare is the fact that you might find limited interaction between the adults and the children, because the ratio most times it's not 1-to-1 or even 1-to-2. If you find a very understaffed daycare. So that's one of the disadvantages. Your child will have less adult interaction, and adults are the primary caregivers of children. So you might find that your child will be screaming and crying, and the caretaker is involved with another child, and she or he will have to wait to be attended to. Another disadvantage of daycare is that there might be a high turnover rate. So children tend to get used to one particular person. It's quite rare for a child to be the type that just gets used to any person at any time. So you might find that the person that's been caring for your child might quit work, and then they have to be exposed to another one, and it's quite disadvantageous to them in that regard. So those have been the pros and cons of daycare. Now let's move on to the pros and cons of nannies. One big advantage of a nanny is that your child will grow up in a familiar environment of she wakes up in the morning and she knows this is home and I'm going to be here all day and I'm going to sleep. Mommy will probably go, but she'll be back in the evening, and not the hassle of changing environment. During day she's in a different place, and then during night she's in a different place. Another advantage of a nanny is that it's very convenient because you don't have to wake up in the morning and then start preparing the baby very early and then drive to the daycare or walk to the daycare or grab a judge to the daycare. So yeah, it's very convenient. You just wake up, give instructions to whoever is keeping the child, and then leave, and then come back in the evening and meet your child. Another advantage of a nanny is that your child will have one-to-one care. Okay, if you have 2 or 3 kids, still the ratio will be reduced. So your children will have adequate adult interaction. Another advantage of having a nanny is that your child is exposed to fewer germs because the children are less. So unless you have other children that go to school, then they'll have to bring the germs to them. But well, the ratio is reduced nonetheless. Another advantage of having a nanny is that you add some additional chores. For example, washing the baby's clothes and all that. But caution is that you shouldn't give her very heavy duties, because taking care of a child is a very heavy task. Like just babysitting is a task itself. So yeah, give her light duties that will allow her to pay attention to the child as well. That you're in more control of the situation, unlike daycare, because then, for example, if you want your child to eat a particular number of times a day, if you want your child not to wear pampers all day, you can do that. Unlike in daycare, where it will be quite difficult for the child not to wear pampers because she's in an area where there's so many people and it's quite not convenient. You can call your nanny and tell her, feed her this at this time or do this at this time, which is quite difficult with the daycare. The cons of having a nanny: number one is that there are no regulations, because for most daycares they have regulations that they must abide by, but for the nanny, you are the one to sit down and tell her what you want and what you don't want, what your expectations of her are. But then again, you're faced with the disadvantage that while you're away, the nanny is alone with the child at home. So it's a bit tricky to have control of the situation in that regard. To curb this, you can buy a camera and leave it home so that you can see what goes on during the day. If you cannot afford a camera, you can maybe leave your phone on record and listen to the proceedings of the day. That will give you a picture of what goes on when you are not around. Another con of having a nanny is that you will need to have backup, because when she is not able to work, say for example she's sick or she has lost a relative or something like that, you have to find a backup. So you either have to stay home, or you have to get a relative, or you have to get a friend, or whatever it is. Another con of having a nanny is that you are faced with the managerial duty of you have to manage her, you have to pay her salary, you have to sit her down when she's not abiding by the rules and talk to her. Generally, it is like a whole manager employee situation, so you have to become a manager at this point. So those are the pros and cons of daycare versus nanny. I have tried all of them out. I don't know which you prefer. As you make your decision, you could look at some of the points that I've pointed out to guide you as you make your choice. Thank you so much for listening. If you have not yet subscribed, press that subscribe button and like the video. And if you find it useful, you can share it with your mommy friends, with your daddy friends. And until we meet on the next one, it's been a pleasure. Mwah.